We advise the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Welcome to our show, Heartbeat.
Ay, marami pong salamat.
Marami rin yung lalaki. Ayaw rin ng divorce.
Change, meaning introduction of new policies.
At natutuwa ako na
And all that, or just katito.
buwan ng linggo ng kanyang panunungkulan.
It went from 5 peso and 30 centavos.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Welcome to our show, Heartbeat Live. I'm your host, Ray Rosa. Magkakapiling po tayo dito ng halos isang oras. Marami tayong mapapag-usapan na mahalaga para sa ating bansa. Pero sa gabi pong ito, tayo'y pinagpala because we are gonna have two wonderful guests here who have consented to grace our program to discuss very vital issues affecting our nation. Kanya lang, bago ko sila pakilala sa inyo, I want to talk about our text promo winners. Ito po yung dalawang napili namin na mga dumating at alam naman nyo, this last 2 weeks, katakot ang daming mga text na dumadating dito when we started tackling some of these sensitive things like anti-dynasty provisions of the bill, freedom of information, etc., etc. From 0916-461-7106, from Joey of Manila, Mr. Rosa, is there a way where politicians who seek electoral office be subjected to a thorough evaluation? Dapat kasi di lang professional qualifications ang tingnan. Dapat siguro isama ang emotional at psychological evaluation. At saka ang may kaso dapat di na pinatatakbo. Only in the Philippines na makakakita tayo ng governor, mayor o congressman na nakukulong na ay nananalo pa sa eleksyon. Dapat disqualified kaagad ang mga yon at di na pinagpa-file ng COCs. Unfortunately po, yan ang issue that is contained in our Constitution. The Constitution must contain the qualifications of public office. Unfortunately, there are none. Especially maski na sa presidente, hindi kailangan makatapos ng high school o grade school. Wala po. But, you know, it can be part and parcel of our constitutional change. But, napakahirap po i-interpret o pangasiwaan ang psychological at emotional evaluation. At it's a very uncertain science. At who can tell who's, you can measure IQ, but you cannot measure morality. You can measure, for example, achievements in public life, but you cannot measure integrity. Ayan ang problema. Dito sa larangan na ito, gusto nilang hiwalayin sa politika lahat ng integrity and moral issues. Let only that which is legal prevail. Mali po yan. Sapagkat, mas kinaligal ang isang bagay, hindi ibig sabihin tama. Okay, so dito kailangan medyo ating pipinuhin yung ating pag-iisip and our reasoning. At ang pangalawa nating nanalo dito at paradala namin ng 100 peso e-load. 0915-520-6161. Federico Cornejo Parañaque. Ngayon nila sasabihin mali yung pagbibigay ng certification lang to justify their funds. Yun po ay tungkol nun sa Senado, sa MOOE na pinag-usapan natin 2 weeks ago. Ngayon na nga, nagkabukingan na. Di ba nga may kasabihan, character is what you do when no one is looking. Puro sila mga ipokrito. I cannot agree with you more. And that's why we're sending you an electronic load of 100 pesos. Alright. Kanya, keep the text coming po, lalo-lalo na because of our guest. Pakikilala ko sa inyo po na ang aking unang panauhin dito, si Attorney Alan Pagya, who is a constitutional lawyer. We've had him as a guest here before. And he's a very, very competent lawyer. I know you will enjoy his views. At pangalawa po, pinagpala tayo at pinaunlakan tayo dito ng isang tumatakbo po for this Senate. And I hope that you will vote for him. Wala pong iba kung hindi si Senator Ramon Magsaysay Jr., Ka-Jun, Senator Jun.
Yes,
at dati ng senador ito, kanya babalik sa ganun. And, pagka naiisip ko, Jun, ba't mo gustong bumalik sa Senado?
Hindi sa gustong bumalik, parang duty yan.
Oo.
So, nung tinawag tayo ng ating Partido Liberal, si Franklin Drilon, chairman, tapos sinundan ni Presidente, very hard to say no. Parang duty natin. Pag sinabi sa'yo, magsilbi ka ulit. Yes, Mr. President.
Are you going to be your own man in the Senate?
Of course. Of course.
Magandang mapakinggan po yun. In other words, this is not, in other words, you know where loyalty to the country or to the party ends and loyalty to the country begins.
Correct. Sabi nga duty, honor, country.
Ayun.
Ay yung sabi ni Manuel Quezon, my loyalty to my party ends where my loyalty to my country begins.
Okay. Hindi
Manuel
question na
Quezon.
sasabihin siya. Pagkaakala nilang iba dyan na nagkamali ka, sasabihin mo, didemanda mo ko, tingnan natin.
Kailangan yan doing what is right.
Bakit, alam mo, in other countries na nakikita ko, alam di ba, yung iba dyan sa Japan, pag nakita gumawa ka na hindi tama, o sa pananaw ng tao, gumawa ka na hindi tama, they commit political harakiri. I resign. Bakit dito sa atin walang ganun?
Baka kapituko.
Kapituko sa pwesto.
Baka wala silang option. Kasi ang politics ko minsan dito, Ray, parang family affair. So, nagiging economic ang consideration. So, walang gusto mag-resign, except for a few. I'm sure there are a few who will resign out of honor, no?
Not so much resign, but there are those who after one term said, ayoko na. One of that, for example, naging panauhin natin ito, baka naalala nyo si Senator Rene Sagisag.
Rene Sagisag, also Ting Paterno.
Si Ting Paterno, ganun din.
Yeah.
One term, at
Ayaw na.
Ayaw na.
Ayaw na.
Hindi ba yun ang sinabi nung Chief of Staff ni Senate President Enrile, si Gigi? The Senate sucks or stinks.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It came out in the papers. She said, the Senate stinks. I wonder why she said that. But then she didn't bother to explain. Nag-resign na lang siya ngayon as Chief of Staff of JP.
Natuloy ba? Natuloy?
I don't know
It's
because
not-
they've
it's not
been very
reversible.
quiet about it.
It's not reversible, ha?
According to her, it's irreversible.
Reversible.
According to her. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But the issue, kasi alam mo, pinag-usapan natin dito yung issue yun eh. You know, kung merong isang savings ang Senado, ito ba'y diskresyon ng isang tao na ipamigay kung kanino niya gusto ibigay? Do you think there is some morally correct or even legally justifiable reason for that?
Well,
Hindi naman nila kanilang pera yun eh. Di ba?
public funds yan. Public funds yan. Pero yung President, the Speaker, and the Senate President, constitutionally, they can do what they want with it. But is it legal? It's legal.
Is
But
it
is it moral and fair? Well, you have to look at case to case. Kasi usually, ang pag may savings, pinag-uusapan yan sa Senado. Collegial body yan, no? So usually, mga cooperatives, nabibigyan yan ng savings. Yung mga casuals na walang item, pinibigyan yan sa mga year-end. So maraming mga pecking order yan.
The question that I have to ask is, it is not the job of the Senate, once they pay a government worker a salary, to make them any happier.
Correct, correct.
Di ba?
Oo, correct.
Ano tingin mo doon, Alan?
Tama po yun. Tama po yun.
Huwag na sana magagalit sa akin ng mga empleyado sa gobyerno, no? Kasi alam mo, even in the barangay, that's practiced daw na pagka meron savings, with the approval of the barangay captain and the councilors and the mayor, ipinag-ahati-hati ang binibigay na bonus. Ang tanong ko ay bakit?
Meron kasi silang mga rules and regulations. They were able to squeeze it out of COA to enable them to play around with savings. But as you said earlier, not everything that is legal is moral.
Okay, but the issue here is who is COA to say yes or no. All they have to do is audit and make an independent judgment. Kung ito'y hindi tama, hindi tama. Abay, bakit hindi naman sila dapat mag-approve niya na? If they have any objections to the transaction, let them speak up.
But if the COA allows it, there will be no basis for complaint.
I don't know whether that is, you mean to say that the moment COA says it's okay, it's therefore okay?
That's what happened with the requirement of certification.
Pinayagan nyo. There was a resolution of the Senate and the House kasi doon that only, I think, started 1 or 2 years ago where they agreed that a mere certification for the expenditure of MOOE, which is the maintenance and other operating expenses, was sufficient without any explanation. That may be the sense of the Senate, but that means who is going to police the policeman?
No more.
In other words, it is not for COA, and COA, if the commissioner of COA had any kind of moral character or strength, pero kung siguro sabi niya, sorry sir, hindi ko pwedeng tanggapin yan. You cannot decide for yourself what you're gonna do with the money. Especially if it is savings that is subject to appropriation.
Well, you have to look at the beginning because in any budget, you have the total estimate, let's say, of the Department of National Defense. Now, alam natin na ang basic unit ng military is 9 soldiers to a squad, no? Pero, 12 to a squad. Pero nakalagay dyan, 9 lang. So, 3 underfilled. Now, ang funding yan, baka 12 on some cases. Pero 9 lang nandun. That's automatically 25% savings. What do you do with that? Kaya
So
may
did
mga
that revert
realignment.
back to the National Treasury?
Ayun sinasabi na nung araw lang for the boys eh.
Yun na nga ang
For the
punto
boys
ko
nga.
dito.
So there was a time during the previous administration's presidency,
Oo.
there were 9 chief of staffs during
my.
the 10 years. Almost less than a year each.
Oo.
So meron silang one for the boys.
Well, hindi ba yun nga naging problema sa AFP na yung mga pabaon upon retirement?
Pabaon, yes.
Okay. Again, that was sharply criticized because it has no foundation in law.
Very loose ang auditing and accounting.
But,
Very loose.
but observe that while there was a whistleblower and somebody made the mistake of admitting, the Senate stopped investigating.
Yun ang problema. Now, I hope, if you are in the Senate again, Senator Magsaysay Jr., will you be quiet or are you going to speak up if the Senate says this is too hot to handle, quiet na lang tayo?
Alam mo, pag quiet lamang, you're not doing your duty. It boils down to transparency. Dahil precisely, kaya meron tayong Freedom of Information bill, no? Wala pa.
eh.
Pero doon sa
Pinatay na.
Constitution meron yan. Anything that has to do with public funds will have to be transparent. Yun lang wala tayong enabling law. But the essence of transparency is there. So you're asking me if, let's say, the Department of National Defense and the AFP budgets are trying to hide something, we have to show it. We have to show it. So,
But that's where the political pressure comes in. Naku, wag na nyo kami pahiyain dito, wag na nyo kami pahiyain doon. Do you think that's a valid? Because so many people, and I remember the talk in the AFP during the bad days of the AFP. I don't know whether it's good days now, no? Pero I hope it is. But in any case, sabi nila, you know, if you keep criticizing the AFP, you will destroy the AFP. And I've always taken exception to that statement. You know, when an institution cannot hold its people accountable for what they have done, that institution has lost its purpose for being. Hindi pwede. And the more you expose this, then you have the basis to reform the system. But why will you sweep it? Ipapailalim mo ngayon sa ilalim ng lamesa o sa ilalim ng banig. Aba, hindi pwede yun. At least, as far as I'm concerned, let it be brought to the light. So that then the remedial measures can be taken.
Yung sinasabi ni Senator na nasa Constitution naman yan that the state shall afford the citizenry full disclosure of public records.
Anong gagawin mo kung ayaw sundin ang konstitusyon?
Yun yung sinasabi na enabling statute. As it is, the constitutional provision, like Senator Magsaysay correctly stated, is
Nandun.
operative. But there is no penalty. And the penalties, the sanctions, are supposed to be provided by the legislature.
Okay.
And that is where we are. We don't have those
That's what
reasonable
I meant. No?
limitations.
If the Congress, whether it's Senate or lower house, are remiss in their obligations to pass the enabling laws, can they be, and it's like the anti-dynasty provision, di ba?
Yeah.
They're supposed to define anti-dynasty. And since 87, they have refused to define it. Is that what you would call a culpable violation of the Constitution for which they can be held to account?
Oh, but there is a more basic omission. That would be the omission of the constitutional commissioners. They should have defined it right there.
Okay? But it's there, that's been ratified by the people. That is the Saligang Batas already. So whether they were remiss or not, that is the law. Di ba meron tayong legal statement that dura lex sed lex. Meaning to say that's in the Constitution. It establishes the responsibility of Congress to pass the enabling law, and let's not look for a defect in the Constitution. Obey it, because that's what's in the Constitution.
Well, for that matter, Ray, no? If you remember Jess Robredo, the late Secretary of Interior, DILG, when he was mayor of Naga City, early 2000, 2001, he would post all the contracts for public bidding open, although he didn't have to. Talagang kwan siya, transparent, binuksan niya. Sino kanyang bid committee? Walang government. Merong pare, may bishop, merong Rotarian, merong Kiwanyan, merong JCs. Sila nag-conduct ng mga bidding, open to everybody, to anybody who wants to see it. So, nagkaroon siya ng distinct honor of public service doon sa Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2002. Nanalo siya, mayor siya noon. And that made him an exception. Dahil hindi na siya hintay ng FOI law, but he, because of the Constitution, he just implemented it. Incidentally, he was a mechanical engineering graduate of De La Salle Taft. So that's what made him a distinctive city mayor.
And being a La Salle graduate, Senator Magsaysay, I presume that in the Senate, you are going to continue the tradition of being open and accountable.
Of course. Yeah.
Diba?
Kailangan yan.
Maski na ba magalit sa iyo mga kapwa senador? May problema na nila.
Ano ba nangyari doon sa fertilizer fund scam? Nandun naman ako sa coalition ng ating dating Pangulo noong 2001, no? Yung may re-election. But dahil nga na kailangan na magkaroon ng katotohanan, itinuloy natin at hindi siya pumayag na masabina natin yung mga government officials. But tinuloy,
Executive privilege.
Tinuloy pa rin namin.
Okay, we have got already some questions here coming in, so we will begin to read them. And, from 0916-736-1553 from Marsuke Edsi of Pasay. To Senator June Magsaysay, what is your take on the Freedom of Information Bill? Sa tingin niyo po ba, maipapasa na ito sa susunod na Kongreso? Kasi mukhang patay na sa Kongresong ito, ano?
Well, yung FOI bill na mukhang hindi na certify, no?
Hindi nga sinertify ng
Hindi
palasyo.
sinertify.
Yet, the President promised to support
Hindi
that
na
bill and
certify.
now he
Pero
abandoned it. Why?
When he was running, I think he was all for it. Pero nung siya ng presidente, nakita niya na it's a little bit more complex. So, may mga qualifications yan.
But it's there already. As a matter of fact, somebody passed a memo and say, no, don't pass the Freedom of Information Bill now because it's now full of kulatilya.
Para na watered down na.
Na watered down.
Watered down. It's worse to have a bill that has been watered down
Than no bill at all.
rendered inefficient, no? Useless.
I think
gawin na natin the spirit of the Constitution. At each mayor can be pressured to conduct on the basis of transparency. Para sa United States yan, meron silang sunshine law sa Florida and several other states.
Actually, there are two elements that are going to be that are important there. One is executive privilege. So that when a president discusses an issue with a lot of advisors, that does not need to be brought out to the public. So that he be freely, and people can speak freely to him.
Correct, correct.
But the second aspect of the Freedom of Information Bill is the declaration of something as part of state secrets. Iba yun. Doon kailangan may limitations and mayroon time frame when it must be disclosed anyway. And then at least we can go back and say, oy, mali pala ito. Or tama pala yung pagka-declare nun, etc., etc. So that it cannot be used simply to hide malfeasance and nonsense and grafting and corruption, di ba? From 0935-193-3956, that's really true. Kailangan pag-usapan talaga ang pera ng gobyerno dahil naaabuso na ng mga empleyado nito. Okay? So, do you feel that the Senate is entitled to certain, proprietary secrets when it comes to spending the people's money?
Meron tawag dyan yung intelligence funds, no? In fact, all agencies have their own
intelligence funds.
Intelligence funds. And it's prone to be abused by abusive leaders,
Oo.
agency heads.
Yung
Nangyari yan,
certification
oo.
lang yun.
Nangyari-
Doon walang accounting.
Nangyari yan sa PCSO.
Oo.
Kaya ngayon mukhang yung former president, mukhang malaki ang kanyang accountability dyan. Dahil biglang lumaki intelligence funds
Oo.
PCSO, what do you use it for, no? Lahat ng agency, Armed Forces of the Philippines, PNP, even the Senate has its own confidential funds.
Should you not establish, if you're in the Senate, can you not organize there or pass a resolution to say that you and some members of the lower house will act as like an oversight committee in the usage of these funds?
Well, there's the chairman of the Committee on Accounts, no? May Committee on Accounts yan. Pero very powerful yan kasi talagang he can tweak it either way.
Oh, we understand that responsibility is heavy and the power is great, but at least we hope the mechanism is there so that nobody is able to act on his own and nobody else can look at it.
Yeah.
Diba?
At least meron silang
yun ang-
execom para may
Oo.
execom sila.
Oo.
Committee on
Alright.
Accounts.
From 0907-117-5934, Ernesto Dando ng Cotabato. Meron namang mga politiko na may sariling mga pasugalan. Anong gagawin natin sa mga ganun kaya? Ano kaya ang magandang, whether pasugalan, which is illegal of course, no? What about yung mga lumalabas pa sa pelikula habang nasa Senado? What about yung iba naghahanap buhay pa ng iba? Yung iba nagiging parang endorser ng produkto or facial care. Ano ba tingin ninyo doon, Alan? What do you feel about the extraordinary sources of revenue of those who are in the Senate? Is the position not enough?
Actually, you are provoking a very sensitive area in governance in our country where the power of legislation is being used to legalize, to give a semblance of acceptability to matters that are considered immoral or bad. For instance, gambling. We all teach our children not to gamble because it leaves good fortune to luck. Instead of relying on your industry and your talents, it leaves it to luck, and that's not good. That's immoral. But the law made the distinction. Sabi nila, not all gambling is bad. So that if it is legal, then it is all right.
Ay, paano mo naman sasabihin dyan? Hindi lang naman ang gobyerno ang gumawa niyan eh. Pati na nga simbahan nagbibingo. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin nun? Di ba sugal din yun? Is that a game of chance also?
A game of chance is not necessarily an immoral thing because most games are entertaining, but when it becomes profit oriented to a commercial level, then that becomes gambling.
I wonder, why would anybody hold a bingo social except to make little money, to raise money for something?
Fundraising.
Fundraising din yan, di ganun din yan. Whether you use it for commercial or not, really does not matter. But anong tingin mo dyan, Kajun? Senator Jun?
Well, let's look at how gambling is defined. No? So you're looking at the numbers game, wetting. Sa South, Masyao, or numbers game, no? So that is really immoral dahil, first of all, you are taking advantage of poverty. Kasi 99% of those who bet are poor people who feel that they can win putting in 25 centavos or 1 peso.
Ganun na rin sa loto.
Pero ang ginagamit dyan, a big chunk of the income goes to corrupt public officials. Yun ang malaking problema.
Hindi matigil. And then the public officials and the PNP have learned how to make so much money of it.
Yan ang nangyayari. Yun ang malaking bagay
That
na
really does not
corrupted.
speak to the issue. It's illegal because we don't know how to control. Maybe that's why they tried to put the STL to try to fight
Small town
lotteries, no? Yung wedding, pero it's not working. From 0919-221-2562, from Edo Antipolo to your two guests, ano po ang stand nila sa divorce bill? Wow.
Well, legally, as early as 1950, under the President Rojas' administration, when the civil code was being drafted, the original proposal included divorce. It was only the spouses of the mostly gentlemen legislators who opposed it and reduced it only to legal separation.
Ayun. Anong tingin mo,
Well,
Kajun?
basically, I'm against divorce. No, I'm against divorce.
Oo.
What we should do is to improve the provision of civil annulment under the family code.
Well, except that the civil annulment now has become such an expensive,
Correct.
lucrative sinecure that lawyers are now raking it in, but it's not available to the
To
little
the
person, sa
ordinary
mga
people.
mahihirap. Di ba?
Yun ang dapat i-address natin. Dahil siguro pwedeng mag-assign ng isang full-time government lawyer for each court, no?
But the truth of the matter is, divorce is allowed. If you happen to be a Muslim.
Oh.
All you have to do is say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you.
Marami nga nagiging Muslim.
Dahil doon.
Nagiging Muslim. Tapos they come back to become Catholics again.
Ay, nako. Alright.
So, convenience.
We will have to stop for a few moments. Kailangan lang ng ilang reminder. Huwag po kayo mawala. Babalik tayo and we'll start answering some of the other texts that are coming in. Don't go away.